What's going on YouTube? Today we're talking skull crushers and more importantly, tips to make your skull crushers better. I have 3 tips today we're gonna cover, and these are gonna make your skull crushers way more effective when it comes to building strength, power, and mass. Let's dive in. All right, my first tip for more effective skull crushers is to limit the amount of arch and thoracic extension you're using. So in the bench, it's common to set up and have some form of natural arch through the thoracic and so forth. And when we think about the goals at hand, it makes sense, right? We want to limit range of motion. We want to utilize our pec major more so when pressing in a horizontal plane. But when we're using that for skull crushers, we're actually limiting a little bit of the triceps and how much they can do. Why is that? Well, watch this. So by shifting into this thoracic position, we're having that natural arch. We're actually limiting some of the range of motion that the triceps could be going through. So we bring our feet up on the bench, keep that rib cage down. We can be a little bit more strict with our elbow positioning. And also, we're less likely to use momentum to bring the weight up. This is gonna create a better range of motion when it comes to contractions or more intent focused contractions. And also it's gonna keep us a little bit more true with what we're capable of doing and selecting load management accordingly. All right, so the takeaway here is to limit thoracic extension as much as you can when doing skull crushers, whether it be with barbell or dumbbell. If you notice that you're naturally kicking into that arched position, you might want to drop the weight or bring your feet up on the bench and be a little bit more mindful of your rib cage positioning. All right, my second tip is to not be afraid to increase or decrease the elevation of your bench. Flat bench skull crushers, phenomenal. But if we shift the elevation or decrease the elevation, we can actually produce some different adaptations. So for example, if we increase the elevation of our bench press, we can actually promote a deeper range of motion when it comes to the flexion point of view from this exercise. We can get a little bit deeper in our eccentric, and this can be useful for folks who have the goal of time under tension and really optimizing how much they're loading and stretching eccentrically with the triceps. So one reason I like to decrease the elevation of the bench is because we're gonna need a little bit more serratus activity. So similar to a dumbbell pullover, the only difference is that we're gonna be isometrically contracting and holding that position while the dumbbells are moving backwards. So as we go through that flexion, we are gonna be fighting to hold this position with the elbow, with the serratus anterior, the lats and so forth, to lock that positioning in. So if your goal is kind of splitting the load and targeting the serratus and so forth to isometrically contract, decreasing your elevation in a skull crusher could be a great variation to do so. All right, my final tip is to create more intent-focused contractions. Easier said than done. But essentially what I mean is that when we are moving through flexion and extension of the elbow, being very mindful of our positioning and what the triceps are actually doing. So let's look at an example. At the top, we're gonna shift our elbows back slightly. Why do we do this? This is gonna promote more tension on the triceps versus being perfectly stacked. Here, there's not a whole lot of work going on by the triceps. So if we angle the elbows back, we're gonna get a little bit more work at lockout. Now, as we lower the dumbbells down, pay attention to what the triceps are doing. Are they actively engaged, or are you just kind of relaxing on the elbow joints? We want those triceps to always be engaged. And then as we come back up through the contraction, locking out and actually squeezing the triceps. This is a problem that I see a lot of beginners make. They just kind of move through this range of motion and never really focus on the goal at hand. So slowly lower, focus on keeping those triceps active, fight to keep those elbows in. Then, as you bring up the contraction and the dumbbells lock out and squeeze the triceps. These 3 tiny, subtle little form tips will go a long way when it comes to creating strong tricep contractions in these skull crushers. That wraps up today's skull crushers tips video. If you use any of these in your training, let me know how they work in the comments below. And if you support my Grout Fit fashion for this video, drop me a like, drop a subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.